Okay, let us start now. Good evening, everybody. Let me welcome all of you to this webinar where we are going to discuss a number of very important issues, including challenges that countries like ours are facing and going to face in respect to multimodal connectivity. This is part of a project which we are doing on multimodal connectivity in the BBIN sub-region, Bangladesh, Bhutan, India, Nepal, all neighboring countries. And this project is supported by the Foreign Commonwealth and Development Organization of the United Kingdom, whereas ADB, Asian Development Bank, the South Asia Department, Mr. Hayasi, is a knowledge partner in this project. And I must say in the very beginning that we have received excellent support from both FCDO and Asian Development Bank in executing this work. So here we are looking at more at the as against the technical work, or rather more technical work, which agencies like Asian Development Bank or the World Bank or various other agencies they do. Our work is much more grounded, and we are looking into the political economy aspects of connectivity in general and multimodal connectivity in particular. Now, let me spend a minute or two on what exactly we are trying to do. You see, one of the reasons why we understand that in our part of the world, such projects, while they are very, very important, very much needed, they also face a lot of resistance on the ground. One of the reasons for that local population, local people are not often engaged with their, when the projects are envisaged, project reports are prepared, or detailed project reports are prepared. This is also because that once we see, let's take for example a bridge over a river, while that is very important in any case, in any bridge, for enhancing connectivity between two locations to begin with and then multiple locations. It is also important to see that whether as a result of that bridge, some people's livelihood may get affected, negatively affected. So they may resist such changes. So what we are trying to do is looking at various initiatives which are taking place in this sub-region, various connectivity initiatives. So whether it is roadways or waterways or railways, these three in particular, and also looking at their multimodal aspects, how they can get interconnected with each other. We're also looking at what kind of possible safety nets which we can think of while executing such projects. So this is what we are trying to do. And while doing it, we're also trying to see that what kind of lessons that this sub-region can draw from various other parts of the world, particularly our extended neighborhood. So we have Southeast Asia on the one hand, on our east, and we have Central Asia on our west. A number of similar, not same, similar initiatives, multimodal or connectivity initiatives are going on in these regions. So we have picked up some of them to understand what could be the possible key learnings that we can have from those initiatives. So we looked at 4 such initiatives, including one in this region, because we think that that's very, very important for our future growth and development. So we looked at ASEAN Multimodal Connectivity Plan, and we did a working note on that. And similar working notes we have prepared for CAREC Economic Corridors, covering CAREC Economic Corridor 1 and 2. We also looked at the GMS railway network and what lessons, possible lessons that we can draw from that initiative. These two, the last two, CAREC Economic Corridor and GMS railway network, they are ADB-led, ADB-initiated initiatives. So that's also a linkage that we are very keen to look at. We also looked at India-Bangladesh coastal shipping agreement because we think that that could be one of the game changer. We often use the word game changer, but we really think that that could be a game changer for the development of not just these two countries, but also for two other reasons. One is that Bhutan and Nepal, these are the so-called landlocked countries. But as a result of this coastal shipping agreement, how they can also get better access to sea routes. That is something which we have also looked at. So we have gathered in, and also number two is we should not look at, this is what we have found, and we are fortunate that I'm glad to say that, that we should not look at coastal shipping in isolation. We should also see how they are linked with, or it is linked with, our inland waterways. Our inland waterways system, particularly in our eastern region and northeast region, is such that they are interrelated. Of course, political boundaries have come up, but they are largely interrelated. So if we can have some better alignment between inland waterways, our inland waterways, by our I mean the BBIN countries, not just India, and our coastal shipping, uh, then I think we can have much we can see the much larger aspects of multimodal connectivity in this sub-region. So what we have done, that we have looked at these initiatives, we have listed down some of the key learnings that we can draw from them, and I'm just going to highlight. Uh, I'm sure that most of you, if not all of you, have at least looked at those key learnings which we have drawn from those initiatives. I'm going to highlight just two of them. One is that finally we have realized that we should not look at connectivity initiatives in isolation. We have to look at connectivity initiatives in relation to each other, in some cases more than two. So how can we align our, let's say, India is going to come out with a national logistic plan or policy very soon, which is going to be multimodal in nature. So how that policy can be better aligned with the thinking which is happening in our neighboring countries. That's something which we need to look at very, very closely. And number two, when we look at these connectivity corridors, we should not just look at them in terms of roads or railways or waterways. We should see how they are linked with existing as well as potential future production centers. And this is very important because one of the reasons why our part of the world, this sub-region, is not that competitive as compared to many other countries, particularly in Southeast Asian countries, is because our logistic cost is very high. And our India's national logistic plan, which is going to come this month, today is the first of the month, uh, is envisaged to reduce that logistic cost by at least 5% over the next 5 years. And then going forward by 8 to 10% over the next 10 years. So this is the reason why we should why we looked at those initiatives. And obviously the third reason is that they are all multi-country initiatives. So as you know, BBIN sub-region, we are still to see the motor vehicles agreement. The framework agreement, of course, is there, but the protocols, which are also there, they have more or less been finalized, but we are still to see that the agreement is yet to come to the light of the day. So what lessons of bilateral, trilateral, or sub-regional cooperation that we can also draw by looking at these initiatives? That is something which we are very keen to see. Now, in today's webinar, we have two excellent, very knowledgeable speakers. We have Mr. Dongxiang Li. He is the lead specialist in the South Asia Department of Asian Development Bank, has been working on connectivity issues, trade and connectivity issues for a long time, a very experienced person. And he is going to talk about another very important initiative, which we should look at in this context, which is the BIMSTEC Transport Connectivity Master Plan. My understanding is that it's now final, more or less final. Is going to be released soon. It's not going to take much more time. So we are fortunate to have Mr. Dongxiang Li, who is the lead author of this Master BIMSTEC Transport Connectivity Master Plan. So we are going to hear from him that what is this plan about and how we can draw linkages from there to multimodal connectivity in the BBIN sub-region in particular. Then we have Mr. Gopal Krishna, who is a former Secretary of the Ministry of Shipping of the Government of India. He is from Indian Administrative Service, from West Bengal cadre. He spent a number of years in that state. And given the topography or geography of the state, he has excellent on-the-ground understanding about the importance of connectivity for economic growth and development. And then he worked at the center, at the union level, and at a ministry which is very, very important for our present, our current, as well as future growth and development, the shipping ministry. And there are a number of initiatives that he has undertaken. Eastern Waterways Grid, for example, is one initiative which he has spearheaded, and he has been taking very keen interest about our work. So we are very fortunate to have Mr. Krishna with us today. So he is also going to tell us about his experience, his thoughts, not just about the initiatives which have been taken, which are ongoing, but also what we can further do, rather we should do, and together do for future. So with this, let me now request Mr. Dongxiang Li for presenting your thoughts on BIMSTEC Transport Connectivity Master Plan and what lessons that we can possibly draw from that for multimodal connectivity in the BBIN sub-region. So over to you, Mr.
Okay, thank you very much, Bipul, for your introduction of me and also the background. Good afternoon and good evening, Excellency, distinguished participants, ladies and gentlemen, colleagues. It's really an honor and a privilege for me to attend this webinar organized by CARS International and share the BIMSTEC Master Plan for Transport Connectivity. In the next about 15 minutes, I will give a general overview of the BIMSTEC, ADB BIMSTEC cooperation, and also the BIMSTEC Master Plan for Transport Connectivity. The Bay of Bengal is the largest bay in the world. It constitutes the natural geographic bridge between the dynamic South Asia and the Southeast Asia. Bay of Bengal Initiative for Multi-Sector Technical and Economic Cooperation, or BIMSTEC, is a regional organization aimed at promoting economic growth and social development in the region through cooperation in the areas of mutual interest. BIMSTEC was established in June 1997 through the Bangkok Declaration. Currently, there are 7 member states, 5 in South Asia, BBIN plus Sri Lanka, Bangladesh, Bhutan, India, Nepal plus Sri Lanka, and 2 in Southeast Asia, which are Myanmar and Thailand. The total population in this region is 1.7 billion, over 20% of the world total population. However, the regional GDP is only $3 trillion, about 4% of the global GDP. If we look at the intra-regional trade, the trade among the region itself, which is an important indicator for measuring regional cooperation and integration level. It was only about 6% in the year 2019, where the indicator for ASEAN country was over 20%. So in general, we can say that BIMSTEC region is a less developed and a less integrated sub-region. ADB, or Asian Development Bank, has been an important development partner of the BIMSTEC and has been supporting BIMSTEC since the year 2005. ADB supported the organization of the third BIMSTEC Summit in March 2014, and also is a relevant side events. ADB also strengthened the capacity of the BIMSTEC Secretariat, which was established in Dhaka in the year 2014, including setting up its official website. ADB also helped establish the BIMSTEC Transport Connectivity Working Group, or BTCWG, and helped organize all the BTCWG meetings so far. ADB also helped BIMSTEC to develop important knowledge products, including the BIMSTEC transport infrastructure and logistic study in the year 2007, and also is updating and enhancement in the year 2014. In August 2019, ADB approved a new TA in the amount of $1.5 million to support BIMSTEC to carry out a study in the area of tourism promotion, trade facilitation, and financing for transport connectivity. The TA also support knowledge sharing and capacity building programs of the BIMSTEC Secretariat and also the member states. To further promote ADB BIMSTEC cooperation, an ADB BIMSTEC Secretariat MOU has been finalized and is expected to be signed this year after it is approved by the upcoming 5th BIMSTEC Summit. Now let me touch upon the BIMSTEC Master Plan for transport connectivity. So why do we develop this master plan? There are a few reasons. First is the importance of the transport sector. Transport connectivity is a fundamental requirement for regional cooperation process. A well-established transport network reaps the benefit of a free trade area, including promotion of trade and investment, as well as progress in other areas, such as tourism, people-to-people contact, and cultural exchange. For this reason, transport was included as one of the initial six sectors for BIMSTEC cooperation. Now there are 14 areas for BIMSTEC cooperation in total. Second, transport connectivity is still lagging behind in the BIMSTEC region, which is hindering efficient movement of people, goods, and service. So improving transport connectivity is key to unlock the growth and the regional cooperation and integration potential in this region. Third, the updating and enhancement of the BIMSTEC transport infrastructure and the logistic study is not adequate. Although it was also endorsed by the ministerial meeting, but it's not an official strategy, and it's not covering all the transport subsectors. And the time frame was from 2014 to 2020. So it's expired already. So in light of the above, and to further promote transport connectivity, the BIMSTEC leaders are directed to develop a comprehensive master plan for transport connectivity in their retreat in Goa, India, in October 2016. So subsequently, BIMSTEC Secretariat approached ADB for technical and financial assistance to develop this master plan. Now let me briefly introduce the development process of the master plan. From the field of consultation mission in May 2018 until the endorsement of the final draft by the third meeting of the BIMSTEC Transport Connectivity Working Group in December 2020, It takes about 2 years and 7 months to finalize the master plan. So it takes quite a long time. The master plan was officially approved by the 17th BIMSTEC ministerial meeting on April 1st this year. Given the importance of this document, it still needs to be adopted by the upcoming 5th BIMSTEC summit, which is scheduled for December this year. The chair country will be Sri Lanka. Now about the main feature or value addition of this master plan. The BIMSTEC master plan contains broad strategies and actions. It provides a framework for BIMSTEC to enhance transport connectivity between and across member states. Building on the vision of the BIMSTEC leaders for the whole region, the vision of the master plan is a seamlessly connected Bay of Bengal region for peace, prosperity, and sustainability. The mission of the master plan is to strengthen connectivity in the region through improved multimodal or intermodal transport. The master plan built on BIMSTEC transport infrastructure and logistical study. However, it's more comprehensive and forward-looking. It covers both hard infrastructure and also soft infrastructure, including capacity building, trade facilitation, and harmonization of rules and policies. The planning horizon of the master plan is 10 years, from the year 2018 to the year 2028 and beyond. And the implementation and monitoring was also covered in the master plan. So the master plan presents a holistic 10-year strategy and action plan for improving the region's transport linkages, covering both hard infrastructure, including road, railway, ports, inland waterway, airports, and multimodal transport, and also soft infrastructure, including international transport service. Likewise, it also provides a capacity building, transport access agreement, and the harmonization of rules, regulations, policies, and measures related to transport between and among BIMSTEC countries, with a view to facilitate cross-border trade in support of the proposed BIMSTEC free trade area. Specifically, the master plan includes the following major strategies in various subsectors. For the road and road transport, the strategy are prioritization of road development along the key national arterial routes that represent the region's major trade corridors, progressive upgrading of key border link roads, upgrading or construction of dedicated port access road, and the implementation of transport access agreement and regional through transport arrangements. For railway and rail transport, the strategy are prioritization of rail access to ports, land borders, and inland clearance depots, and the development of rail link between India and the landlocked member states of Bhutan and Nepal. For ports and maritime transport, the strategy are development of new ports and expansion of existing harbor infrastructure to increase the capacity to handle container traffic, and investment in container handling equipment to improve handling performance consistent with global good practice. For inland waterway transport, the strategy are development of a sustainable, economically viable inland waterway transport between member states to provide a multimodal and intermodal connectivity. For civil aviation and airport development, the strategy are demand-based development of airport facility and investment in cargo infrastructure and equipment at major airports. For multimodal and intermodal transport, the strategy are pursuit of initiatives that efficiently combine the use of different modes of transport to establish seamlessly multimodal and intermodal transport linkages. For trade facilitation, the strategy are development of border infrastructure at major border crossings, rationalization of document document the requirements for import and export clearance, and the promotion of mutual recognition and agreements, upgrading of ICT system, and the establishment of national single windows, and adoption of advanced logistic system to reduce the distribution cost and time. For human resources development, the strategy are provision of training to enhance the capacity and the skill of people engaged in the transport sector, trade facilitation, border management, and other related sectors. To achieve the goal of these strategies, the master plan identified many projects. In total, we identified 141 flagship projects. And also, we identified 267 projects in the long list. The resources required to implement these projects are substantial. At least $47 billion and $124 billion will be needed respectively for the BIMSTEC country to implement the flagship projects and the projects in the long list. Where developing the master plan is challenging, implementation will be even more challenging and also more important. In accordance with the guidance of the BIMSTEC leaders, the BIMSTEC Transport Connectivity Working Group will work out a modality for its implementation by giving due attention to the specific requirements and the needs of the member states. BIMSTEC Transport Connectivity Working Group will also take the lead in monitoring the implementation of the master plan projects with input from the member states. So now the following factors we think are very important for the successful implementation of the master plan. First is a strong political will and commitment by the member states, as demonstrated by the cooperation between and among participating states, budgeting for identified projects, and including the projects into the national development programs. Second, we think creation of appropriate policy and regulatory framework, including the implementation of a through transport agreement and access agreements for coastal shipping service between and among member states. Third, development of sustainable financing framework for infrastructure projects, including partnership with private sector and other bilateral and also multilateral development partners is also very important. Last but not least, addressing the potential social, environmental, and other concerns, development of adequate human resources and associated capacities, and put into place a robust monitoring mechanism. We think all these factors are very important for successful implementation of the master plan. So this is my brief introduction of the BIMSTEC, ADB's cooperation with the BIMSTEC and the BIMSTEC master plan. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you, Dongxiang, for this very comprehensive overview, I would say, of the BIMSTEC Transport Connectivity Master Plan. So we have learned a lot from your presentation, that how it has come about, and particularly your emphasis on various implementation challenges that we are likely to face as we make progress on this subject. I have a few questions for you to address, but I would like to come back to those questions later. But first, to hear from Mr. Krishna his thoughts on this BIMSTEC master plan, as well as that's in particular, but in general, his thinking about how do we proceed in future on our connectivity initiatives, particularly given the fact that our national logistic plan is going to come. Our Prime Minister has recently talked about this infrastructure project, which is over a period of time, of course, $1.3 trillion infrastructure development activities, which India is going to take up in the near future. That and how all these things can be looked at together in a holistic manner so that we can not just to enhance our connectivity or reduce our logistic cost, but people on the ground can be benefited as a result of such initiatives. So what do you, Mr. Krishna? Sir, you have to unmute.
Good afternoon and good evening, everyone. At the outset, I must thank Mr. Bipul Chatterjee and CUTS International for giving me this opportunity to share some thoughts about intermodal connectivity. Let me just quickly start by saying that at the heart of any efficient management sectoral system is to create two things. One is choice, and the other is to take care of redundancies. We have seen in our IT systems that redundancies are very important. And then we speak and talk about multimodal connectivity in the transport sector. The idea is to create choices for the businesses, for people, and also to create, alternatives. In case one system fails, we have the other system to bank on. And in the context of the entire BBIN nations, if we see, and if we see the geography, we find that India's connectivity itself amongst its own states has tremendous challenges of topography, of geography. The entire northeast states are practically cut off from the mainland, and the connectivity is only through a very small chicken neck. So, not that road and transport connectivity, road and railway connectivity was not there, but last 15-20 years, if we see, we find that a lot of disruptions were taking place in this connectivity. There were bunds, there were political movements, there were insurgencies, and very consciously an attempt was made to, while on one hand to sort out these issues, a thought was gone: how do we strategically increase connectivity to these areas? And all of you may be aware that say 30-40 years back, road transport just comprised in our transport matrix only about 35% goods took place via road. 75% was practically 75% was taken through railways. Today's scenario is absolutely opposite. The matrix has reversed. The road transport sector has grown at leaps and bounds tremendously, and practically today, if we find 66% of our movement of cargo takes place via road. Road has developed quite a bit. Railways is now next with at about 20-25%, but the inland waterways only takes 5 or 6% of the space. Whereas the entire east and the northeastern region provides two big river systems. The Ganga Padda we call the same river in Bangladesh when it enters Bangladesh. The Brahmaputra and the Jamna river. The Jamna river is called, the Brahmaputra is called Jamna in Bangladesh, and the Meghna river systems. These are big river systems in the in this region, one of the largest river systems in the world, having huge tributaries, network of tributaries of waterways. But we have not traditionally utilized this waterway. In fact, Bangladesh, I must say, and there are representatives I find from Bangladesh. Bangladesh, over the last 30-40 years, has really taken a big leap in inland waterways, in seaborne waterways also, but largely in inland waterways. It has a very robust inland waterway system, and also a very robust repairing and building vessel system. And they have vessels which are extremely capable of movement of cargo, small cargo ships we call bulkheads. And if one travels to Bangladesh, one finds on their waterways a large number of bulkheads which are moving. So they have, over a period of time, given importance to these inland waterways, and they have they have large part of their cargo movement takes place, I'm told about 35%, which is one of the largest inland waterway cargo movement which is taking place presently in the world. So in India also, sense was, developing that if we have to first strategically connect our, far-flung states, the best way would be through the waterways. And this particular, effort got a big push when we started developing our national waterways, National Waterway 1, which is the Ganges system, and the Brahmaputra, which is the National Waterway 2. So independently, we started developing these two systems. And when you try to develop a waterway system, essentially it means that you have to have have a fairway, just as a road, uh, has to, function all 24 hours for 365 days. Similarly, a waterway has to function for 365 days, day and night. And so development, large number of projects were taken on Ganges, starting from Banaras to Haldia, and then on the northeast side, independently on the Brahmaputra. But once these projects got, initiated, then an idea emerged that if we connect these two river systems through, again, an existing system, which is inland waterway system, which is existing in Bangladesh, then the entire system will give much more value. The value addition to the entire sector would be much, much more enhanced. And that's how this whole Eastern Grid Waterway Connectivity Project started taking shape. And Bipul had mentioned right in his opening remarks that if we then see from the perspective of the other two states in the region, Bhutan and Nepal, they are absolutely landlocked countries. They require for their intercontinental trade, obviously, ports to be used. Again, there was connectivity through road and rail, which was absolutely choked. And again, the idea emerged that why don't we use the existing waterways, which we are developing, in association with, in collaboration with Bangladesh. Why don't these two countries, and therefore a integrated development of the entire waterway system in the area emerged a few years back. The projects are now, underway. A lot of work has been done, but obviously it throws a lot of challenges. Dongxiang, Mr. Dongxiang did mention some of the softer elements of these challenges. We have to have similar, inter-border movement rules, custom rules. We have to have very similar kind of, standards for vessel movements. We ought to have, night capabilities of movement. So there are a large number of issues on which all the 3-4 governments are working. And I'm sure in times to come, we'll be able to rough out most of these issues. And this will lead to a greater, connectivity, which will benefit not only general economy, create jobs, but obviously the businesses. So what is now needed is that how do we involve the common people in this effort of ours? As Bipul had mentioned, that's very critical. And inland waterways, I must, admit, throws up so many, positives. India issues the largest number of visas to Bangladeshi, nationals. Bangladeshi nationals come in large numbers for medical treatment, for a lot of reasons. If we allow vessel movement, we already have a passenger, transit agreement with Bangladesh. If we allow passenger movement on waterways, large number of people can then travel in a very legal and quick way between the two countries. So the waterways does offer a tremendous, opportunity for all the 4 countries. The opportunity may be larger for 1 or 2 countries. It may not be that huge for some. Bangladesh, obviously, and India would be the major beneficiaries of the system. Bhutan to a lesser extent, and Nepal again largely will get benefit because there is a lot of, congestion on our ports. So Bipul, I think so. This is my initial thoughts. And if there are any questions, I'll be glad to answer them.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for placing your thoughts. I mean, these are very important if we want to look at it, this whole subject in an interconnected manner, I would say. Now, I have a couple of questions for you, sir, but I would come to those questions, and also for Dongxiang. I have a couple of questions, but I would like to come to them, pose those questions towards the later stage. I mean, we still have about 21 minutes to go. I think we have enough time. We have our guests, our participants from Bangladesh. Other than India, we have from Bangladesh, Bhutan, and Nepal. So I would really and be interested to hear from them about what is their thoughts on multimodal connectivity involving all these four countries. So, for example, we have Mr. Manohar Hussain, who is a very old hand, very senior official of Bangladesh Inland Waterways Transport Authority. Manohar bhai, if you are there, if you have any questions, or Mr. Suberi from Bhutan, you can unmute yourself and pose your question. Any one of you, whoever wants to go first.
So, it's embarrassing, I just participated in this session just to hear from the, your speakers. And I was very much, I was very much benefited by listening your speakers, but I had no idea that I'll have to talk. But, already it has been discussed that, Bangladesh is so situated with its inland water transport resources, inland waterway resources, that it can provide services to the landlocked regions and landlocked countries around Bangladesh. So we can provide services to landlocked country of Bhutan and Nepal, and landlocked region of northeastern states of India. And I think everything is going well between the countries, the BBIN consensus and the bilateral relationship between Bangladesh and India. You know that Bangladesh and India recently, in May 2020, a new addendum have been annexed to the protocol, and the route between Dhulian downstream of Farakka up to the Brahmaputra and Padma confluence and Gwalanda have been extended. So what has been done? It means that you have a connectivity with National Waterway number 1 and National Waterway number 2. And the what is the connectivity? IWT connectivity has been established between Northeast India and North India, and IWT connectivity has been established between North India and Bangladesh. So till date, IWT protocol, that traffic protocol traffic from and to Kolkata only, that is West Bengal. Now we will have the opportunity to diverse the origin destination route, and we will have a better connectivity by inland waterway to any destination in the North India up to Allahabad. So I think that is a great thing. And in the meantime, Bangladesh have already connected, Bangladesh and India have already introduced a new route. It's from Daudkandi to Shunamura in Tripura. And I think both Bangladesh and the Tripura state of India will be benefited. I tell you that, Bangladesh and India have recently undertaken, the governments have undertaken a joint initiative to develop the navigability between two stretches which were recognized by both sides, that the routes are only used for Indian transit traffic. And these routes are, are lacking navigability and the quality of navigation, and this has become a seasonal route. Now, with the beginning of the dredging program of both the countries, the Ashur to Karimganj route have become perennially navigable. Even it's 2.5, sometimes 2.5, but it has become, it has started behaving good. And and navigation and transportation has already begun. In the year 2021, this year, 6 boats transported boulders and stones from Karimganj, Badurpur. So this is, I think, with Bhutan, we have Bangladesh is going to sign a protocol on inland water transit, and SOP is already there, and Bhutan is exporting boulders and stone to Bangladesh, and with the consent, the kind consent of India, and in this operation, this is also a multimodal transport operation, because Dhubri is used for loading and unloading of Bhutanese cargo coming by road from Bhutan and then by river to any destination in Bangladesh. I think things are going well, and Cars International are pressing very hard, and and I think within 2 or 3 years we will have a multimodal transport system in the BBIN region, and I believe that the institutional and legal framework which are not conducive to multimodal connectivity, that will also be taken up, and I think that will be revised. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Manor Bhai, for talking about all these positive developments. Let me come to Mr. Suberi, who is from Bhutan. He has been involved with us in this project. Now, here we have a somewhat strange situation, at least to me. It's a strange situation. It's because when you talk about road connectivity, we see that a number of issues, challenges, problems are there when it comes to implementation. This motor vehicles agreement is there since 2015. More than 6 years have passed. We are yet to see its implementation. But at the same time, when we see the inland waterways, we see the number of positive developments are not only being talked about, but they are being implemented on the ground. We need to understand why is it so. Why is it that there is so much of political will for this? I think one reason for this is that we cannot, howsoever one may try, we cannot forget history. And inland waterways used to be the lifeline of our trade, of our connectivity for centuries. And people on the ground, they're aware of this history. And therefore, political support is also there. Now, when we are reviving that, it's relatively much easier for us to do it. Same may go for roads also, but somehow, or railways, but somehow it is not happening in a manner in which railway is slightly better as compared to roadways. Somehow it's not happening in the manner in which it should have happened. Now, Mr. Suberi, you know that Bhutan and Bangladesh has come to an agreement for Bhutanese cargo or Bhutanese goods to be transported via waterways from Dhubri to Bangladesh, and then from there to Chittagong and Mongla Port. So how you think that it is, if I may pose a question, how you think that it is benefiting the Bhutanese economics? If we can hear your thoughts, that would be great.
Thank you, Bipul ji. Thank you so much, and hello to all the participants who are attending the webinar this evening. In fact, it was very refreshing to hear Mr. Lee providing a total chronology of events leading to the development and approval of BIMSTEC Transport Connectivity Master Plan. This was because I have had the distinct privilege of attending at least 2 of the 3 meetings of the working group on the BIMSTEC Transport Connectivity, including the last one that finalized the master plan. I think that was back in 2018, September, October in Bangkok. Indeed, it was a distinct experience. And indeed, I'm happy to understand now that the master plan has now been approved as of April this year. That is what Mr. Liu was mentioning. Of course, waiting for the final endorsement by the BIMSTEC Summit. For Bhutan, I think my focus is going a little bit towards BIMSTEC, but I will come to Bipul Das question as well. For Bhutan, besides road transport, railway connectivity and inland water transport are also included in terms of achieving multimodal transport connectivity. That's part of the BIMSTEC. While inland water transport has made significant progress, and Bhutanese traders piloted the use of Dhubri River Port, I think that was last year on July. Was it 2019 or 2020? I'm beginning to forget, but definitely July 19th was the date the first consignment was piloted from Dhubri, destined onward to Bangladesh. However, this remained as a pilot and it could not continue because of many difficulties, perhaps in terms of infrastructure, in terms of access, a highly congested town area, which had to be bypassed to reach the river port. Therefore, it has not been used after that first piloting. Of course, the good news is through some initiative by CARS as well as other initiatives, 2 additional river ports of Jogigopa and Pandu have now been recognized by the Government of India and will hopefully receive urgent attention from the Government of India in terms of developing infrastructure and other facilities. Coming to the other larger issue of railway connectivity, I think unless the Government of India comes in, it will neither be desirable nor feasible for Bhutan to invest in development of railway infrastructure in India for providing connectivity onward to the Bhutanese border towns. So that is a huge concern. I do not know what is the thought currently at the political level, but this is railway connectivity remains as one of the priority projects for Bhutan in the BIMSTEC master plan as well. And we had to really bargain hard to requesting to include this particular aspect while developing the master plan. And I'm quite happy about the outcome, definitely. Air connectivity, when it comes to multimodal transport, doesn't seem to be much of a problem since the sector operates under a very different kind of format, mostly through bilateral agreements. And so far, so good, not much of an issue. Wherever there is a demand, there is bilateral discussion and the approval is granted to operate services to places as feasible. And coincidentally, we also had a discussion yesterday on the subject of multimodal connectivity. That is the initiative of CARS International. Arnab was present as well, and he is fully aware of the outcome of the discussion. And in the meeting yesterday, the private sector came very strongly in terms of sharing numerous of their problems while operating into India or beyond, because the ground reality seemed to be very different, whereby Bhutanese transporters come under numerous challenges while operating into India or beyond into Bangladesh. I don't want to explain the details. I'm sure many of us already are aware of the issues. Now the issue is, how are we going to deal with the issues which we have recognized in terms of many studies undertaken through ADB, through World Bank, and other initiatives. Most of these have sort of remained in paper, but I'm sure some progress has also been made, but a lot more is required to make the system more efficient. Thank you for now.
Thank you, Mr. Subedi. So let me now come to the questions that I would like to pose, including that I'm sure that Mr. Krishna is aware how we are looking at one particular location in India, Sahibganj, and see that how Nepal can get connected via Sahibganj. in over the National Waterway 1 uh, to divert some of the traffic from roadways to waterways, from Nepal to India, and then from there to either for the domestic market India or out to the rest of the world. Now, I have one particular question from Dongxiang, that you have rightly underlined the importance of what you call software or soft infrastructure, not software, soft infrastructure development, like regulations, the capacity building of local agencies, training, and all these things. So here, I think we need to work very closely with the local agency, not just the central government or the union government agencies, because that becomes, when you look at the ground realities, the main challenge what we see is coming from at the local level, not at the macro level, but at the micro or even at the granular level. So that is something which we need to look at very, very carefully. Now, all these positive developments which have taken place, I'm sure that the INSTEC Transport Connectivity Master Plan is going to give further impetus to these positive developments which are taking place on the ground. And in this context, therefore, my question to Mr. Krishna is that while agencies like World Bank, like ADB, they primarily work with this union government in India. Whereas it's not that they don't work with the subnational government, state governments. They do also work with state governments. But in my thinking, in my opinion, the success of any master plan like this, which is very holistic in nature, encompassing so many issues, I think here is a case for not just one particular ministry to work on it, but we need to take a whole of government approach with political will from the top, and not just at the union government level, but also between the union as well as the states. So how do you see that is happening on the ground? That is something which I think we should look at more carefully. So whoever wants to go first, maybe I would request Dongxiang, if you want to go first. I can't see you.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, thank you very much, Bipul. I think what you mentioned is very important, and I totally agree. Yeah, on the one hand, we need to pay attention to something at the policy level, at the higher level, at the union and federal level, but also something also important at low level, at the state level, and even how to say county or local level, because usually the issues are more how to say concrete at the local level, and usually the local people, the people at the ground are dealing with this kind of day-to-day works. So enhancing their capacity, I think, is very important, and I fully agree that in the future, if it's possible, we would like to also do something not only at the higher level, union and federal level, but also at the lower level, state and even county level, something like that, so that we can increase the capacity of the people who are directly engaged in connectivity, not only hard infrastructure but also soft infrastructure. Yeah, this is a very important aspect. I think you rightly correctly mentioned it, and I think it should be our focus in the future. Yeah.
Thank you so much. So we'll be in touch with you once you release this master plan, and we'll see that what work we can do together in order to see that there is a better political buy-in for it on the other ground. So, Mr. Krishna, I mean, if I may request you for your thoughts about
Yes.
the
See, I
why it
also
is very important for the federal government and the subnational state governments, even the local governments, all agencies, all these arms have to work together. So how do you see it going forward?
I couldn't agree more with you than what you have said, that all governments have to work in unison if we have to reap maximum benefit out of any of the sectors, in the transport field. But there are, regulatory challenges which come in, and let me just quickly mention that Inland Waterway Vessels Act of 1917. Each state in India had its own, act which was governing the vessel movement. Overall, there was this 1917 Act. This created problems by itself because there were different standards on environment, different standards on operation, different standards on inspection, registration, movement, everything. Very recently, the government of India has now come up with the Inland Vessels Act, 2021, which tries to harmonize and standardize, these quite many of these things across the nation. So this will ease out the regulatory burden for the entire sector. So while it's a fact that all governments have to move together, but there are there are challenges at the legal level which do come in the way, and it's the work of the governments, both at the central level and at the provincial level, to see how to ease out and to how to how to blunt some of these challenges. And if the sector has to succeed, then we have to work in unison. There is no doubt about it, because responsibilities are split for various things. Flood controls is purely in the hands of the state governments. River systems do produce siltations and flood bearing things. So all governments have to work together, and I think so. The job of the multilateral agencies, jobs of other organizations, is to see how to bring synergies into all these government activities, workings, both at the government level, at the people to people level, at the ground level, how to develop that interest into businesses, that if there is something good, then the benefit should then reach to these people. So I agree quite a bit.
Thank you, sir. So with that, we are coming to an end. And at the end, I would just want to flag that while all these multilateral agencies, Asian Development Bank, World Bank, and also bilateral agencies, they are doing some excellent work, which is needed for infrastructure development, hard infrastructure development. At the same time, and I may be wrong also, that I think they should also give more emphasis on soft infrastructure development, including regulatory reforms. I mean, developing the capacity of our countries to do regulatory reforms. We do not even have much capacity to do regulatory impact analysis. I think that is very, very important. So regulatory impact analysis and regulatory reforms are going to be very, very important for the success of these initiatives in future. And I think we are going to get much more return from them as compared to what we are getting today. So with that, let me thank you once again. Let me thank all of you for your time, for your participation, for placing your thoughts on the table. And I think this is quite a good learning for us. And this is definitely going to help us in our thinking, in shaping the future activities, not just under this project, or future activities on multimodal connectivity in this subject. Thank you very much. It's already quite late in the evening in Beijing. So I would say good night to you, Dongxiang, and good evening to everybody. And thank you very much. And in going forward, we may do some webinars, but I don't think we're not going to do too many webinars in future, but we'll go back to the physical or hybrid mode, so as to say. We hope that the normalcy is going to return sooner than later, before the end of this year at the earliest. So thank you very much, and let me take this meeting to its closure. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Bye.
Yeah.